guys, I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to make rain sticks. And in a minute I'll show you the supplies you need, but before we get started, I want you to see a view down the length of the pipe. See how it looks like a star in there? The supplies you're going to need for this are, again, a cardboard tube. I'm using one from wrapping paper, nails, rubber bands, a couple squares of paper, something to put inside your tube to make the noise, either rice or beans. I'll show you how both of them sound. And when I was putting my nails in, I noticed it was easier if I started a little hole with a needle. When you try and put the nail in by itself, it squishes the tube a little bit. So when I showed you the inside of the tube and it looked like a star, that's because the nails are arranged in a helix. And a helix is just a fancy word for a spiral. So I'm going to poke a few more holes in my tube using my needle. And then I'm just going to tap the nails in. Because you've already started with a little hole, it's very easy to put them in. Okay. So I have a spiral of nails all the way around my tube. I did it earlier because it takes a little while for it to go on. My next step is going to be covering the end of the tube with my square of paper. Now, when I tried this earlier, my paper was too stiff. It didn't cover up the end well, so I crinkled it up a little bit. That's going to soften the paper and it'll fit around the edge of your tube more closely. You definitely don't want the paper coming off after you have filled your rain stick with beans or rice, because that would make a giant mess. If you're going to keep your rain stick for a while, you probably want to glue the paper down to make it as safe as possible. I'm just using a rubber band. There. Now I'm going to show you the difference in tone when you put different things in your rain stick. These aren't your only choices. You could use beads, you could use noodles, whatever you have laying around your house. That's rice, hear it? I'm not going to cover up the end of my tube yet, I'm just going to tip it over carefully. Alright, now I'm going to pour my rice out. I'm going to show you what it sounds like if I use beans instead. You can also mix your ingredients in there if you like the sound of both of them. And again, just covering the end, I'm going to tip it over. You'll see that the rice is much higher pitched. The beans are a lower pitch. It sounds like a heavier rain. The bigger your bean, the lower your pitch will be. It is having the nails in a spiral that makes the sound. If you were just to dump some rice or beans in a tube and tip it over slowly without putting a spiral in there, all you would get would be a shaker-like sound. You need the spiral. Okay, so I have covered my other end and now it is safe to tip it back and forth. You could also try changing the sound of the beans or rice hitting the end of the tube by trying different papers, maybe waxed paper, tin foil, whatever you want. But again, be careful because waxed paper and tin foil will break a lot easier than paper. All right, let me get my supplies ready and then I will show you how we're going to try to make another rain tube. And this is for people who either don't have nails at home or their parents won't let them use them. Okay. Here are your supplies. Again, a cardboard tube. This time I'm using a paper towel tube. I'm using some just fluffy stems. And of course, the paper. Again, just 2 squares of it. Now this time, you're not going to put nails through your tube. So we're going to start by covering the end of our tube this time. Here's the rubber band, and we're going to start by covering it because we're going to drop the pipe cleaners down the middle, I'll leave it like that, down the middle of the tube. So in order to do that, you have to twist your pipe cleaner into a spiral. So just wrap it around a couple of your fingers, around and around, and then spread it out a little bit because you want the beans or the rice to bounce off the edges of the spiral. Okay, I measured earlier, so I know that it takes me 4 pipe cleaners to fill up a tube. Okay, and then since I already covered up the bottom of my tube, I'm just going to drop the pipe cleaners down. Okay, and then the same thing. You can either use rice or you can use beans, and it'll change the sound. Here's beans. It's a shorter tube, so the sound doesn't last as long. Dump those out. And I'll show you what it sounds like with the rice. And then again, if you want to, crumple up your paper so it's a little bit softer and fits better over the edge of the tube. Rubber band around. Again, if you're going to keep it for a long time, go ahead and glue that down. And then it makes that softer, lighter sound. Of course, the longer your tube is, the longer it takes whatever you put in there to reach from one end to another, the longer of a rain sound that you make. All right, I'll see you next week when we will continue to make more instruments.